Another strategy for improving Minnesota's financial outlook is to raise revenue. Senator Erin Maye says some of that work began last session. The conversation will revolve around two new reports, one which focuses on the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. When it comes to government spending, a lot of us have questions. Questions like, how and where were my tax dollars used? When red lights flash, you must stop. That's the message behind a student safety bill the Senate passed with unanimous support this week. I have to ask, you're mentioning Connecticut a lot. Connecticut, Minnesota, would it be apples to apples or would it be a little different?
No, it'd be.
Today, a bill that advocates say would guarantee freedom, fairness, and equality for everyone is up for debate. So during your swearing-in ceremony, you had purple butterfly earrings. Today, you have yellow butterflies. Is there a significance behind the butterflies? A report finds major flaws in a state grant program, leaving it vulnerable to fraud.
Probably a lot different than having an office building a couple hundred feet from your house.
Yeah, it's not the neighbor you're looking for. No. And I have to imagine it could have some impact on property value. And that's all the time we have today. Thank you for joining us, and see you next time. For some first responders, what happens in the field doesn't always stay there. Sometimes the trauma of what they see at work stays with them and impacts their mental health. But here in Minnesota, these first responders now have a way to process those emotions that's a little outside the box, because it's actually in a barn. Figaro was fast, strong, and successful until he wasn't.
He raced all over the country and he got injured. He's tried many different second careers. Jumping, did some amazing physical careers, and then he got really injured. And so he has had to go through identity changes and shifts, put on a different uniform.
Sally Mixon says now Figaro has a new perspective, a new uniform, and a new job, saving lives.
His true identity is who he is. And he's had to learn that. And our first responders have to learn that. Their true identity is not that uniform.
Figaro is one of a handful of retired racehorses helping Minnesota first responders process their trauma. First responders like Angela Casey.
I had a very traumatic call about 4 years ago, and it was one of those things where I was like, I'm good, I'm fine. And after a few months when it wasn't solving itself, and I could see that it was taking a toll on my mental health, and I wasn't being the best mom that I could be. I wasn't being the best wife I could be. I wasn't being the best cop that I could be. That's when I reached out and said, you know what? I think I need help. I think I need to try something, anything.
What she found was Abijah's on the backside, an approach to therapy that gets first responders out of their heads and into the arena.
It's not talking about maybe the reasons why you're anxious or, like normal talk therapy. It's about seeing the way that you're feeling in these animals and then being able to work it out in that way.
For a law enforcement officer struggling with anxiety, instead of talking about anxiety, there's a few things that happen. They're going to talk about this character out here that might be representing anxiety. It might be running, it might be pacing. It takes their anxiety and it puts it out there. We're touching things, we're smelling things, we're walking through things that can represent, we're hearing things that can represent a lot of parts of their story. It's a full body experience versus just thinking. There adds a little bit of humor to it as well that really kind of takes down some walls and some barriers for them, which we have found to be significant.
One day during a session, Sally and myself started talking about faith. And when I'm struggling with anxiety, where does my faith come into place? At the time, I only used faith when I needed it. My faith needed to be a bigger character. And as I said that, Finn moved right into the middle of the arena and just looked at me. And he became my faith horse. If I'm struggling with my faith, or if I feel like I need more faith, I think about Finn.
Experiences like these have kept Casey coming back to Abijah's and on the job. And her success story isn't a surprise in these stables. Out of the more than 130 first responders Abijah's has served, Mixon says all but 4 have remained on active duty.
We have officers that have shared they probably would have retired or quit a year ago, and they're still doing it, and they're finding their passion again.
But this program wouldn't be here without help from a different herd.
We in the legislature are very numbers driven, and we want to fund programs that are successful, and you can't argue with the success of this program. When you look at the science behind it, when you look at the people that are providing it, and more importantly, when you hear the testimonials of those that have been helped and the miracles in their lives that have been performed, it's how can you not be supportive? One of the stories that moved me was there was a first responder, and she was at her first therapy session. The horse came up to her and laid down, and she burst into tears because she had contemplated suicide the night before, and she felt like the horse was playing that out for her. Now she's back on the job. She's there as a mother and a wife and a daughter. The fact that we can keep them in these roles, we can keep them providing for their families, we can keep them serving their communities, I think it's a wonderful benefit for the entire state.
Senator Eric Pratt authored Senate File 901, which funded the program. After that, he needed allies of his own to get it across the finish line.
I looked specifically for co-authors that were interested in mental health or that had that first responder background. So Senator Howe, Senator Seeberger, and Senator Hoffman met that threshold, and quite honestly, they helped me advocate for the bill. Supporting our first responders is not a partisan issue. In committee and in all the stops that it made, it had a tremendous amount of support.
To have his support and to kind of be the wind in our sails, we would not be here. We just wouldn't, and there would be hundreds of first responders that wouldn't have got this kind of help without their support. So, I mean, a thank you doesn't do it justice.
And for those still in need of support,
do your research, come out and see what's happening. Talk to the people that have gone through the experience, and it's life-changing.
A healthy horse requires a healthy herd, which is like people. You're not alone. You have a herd. You have people that get you. We're part of your herd.
Hard calls don't stop coming, so it's always nice to have Abijah's be that like steady rock in my life. This is such a family here, and it's cool that my family includes someone like Sally and someone like Dina, along with all of these horses that have helped me so much.
there's a herd and a horse just waiting to help. Senators' work to balance the budget last session is now paying dividends. Minnesota Management and Budget's February forecast finds the state's projected deficit has been replaced with a surplus. And while that's something to celebrate, challenges remain. A looming deficit to a projected surplus in just a few months.
We now project to end fiscal years 26-27 with a surplus of $3.7 billion, which is $1.3 billion more than forecast in November. As a result, we're currently forecasting a $377 million positive balance in FY 28 and 29. The increased projected balance in both biennia is due to a slightly improved national economic outlook, which drives an increase in forecast revenues. Minnesota is in a strong financial position.
Minnesota Management and Budget says the state's budget and economic forecast is strong, but not exactly secure, with the federal government saying it will freeze funds until Minnesota fixes its fraud.
On January 6th, CMS indicated their intent to withhold $515 million per quarter from the state's MA reimbursement. That action is currently pending appeal, and the loss of federal funds is not reflected in our estimates today. We received additional notice from CMS that they would defer $260 million of our Medicaid reimbursements pending further information from the state to justify claims that they flagged. Federal funds are a very important piece of the state budget. Federal funds make up about 1 in every $3 spent by state agencies.
As we balance this budget, we're going to have to think about what kind of flexibility is going to be necessary for the administration if those cuts come.
Even without factoring in the uncertainty around federal funding, Minnesota legislators still have to face and fix the state's current spending patterns.
In total, we project that spending in the current biennium will be $68 million lower than our previous estimates, but the planning estimates have increased by $152 million since our last forecast.
Despite tremendous progress in the last legislative session, more work is needed to address the ongoing structural imbalance to align revenues and spending. The sooner we begin looking for additional ways to do that, the less likely we are to face a future fiscal cliff.
And not all of the February forecast's figures are favorable. Minnesotans are feeling financial strain.
We are observing some signs of consumer stress with higher delinquency rates in certain loans, credit cards, auto loans, and student loans. Minnesota's unemployment rate has continued to increase over the past year.
Minnesotans are facing hard decisions because their costs are rising, but their wages are flat. And state leaders are going to face hard decisions.
We got to make sure that we are focusing on the needs of Minnesotans for affordability. That means tax conformity. That means making sure that we're lowering things such as tab fees for vehicles. That means that we're focusing on things that affect things like property taxes.
So while they may disagree on how we got here and how to solve the problem, legislators are committing to moving forward together.
We got to work together and making sure that we are focusing on Minnesotans and trimming down government spending in a way that helps out this state to make sure they can grow and prosper in ways that we haven't seen for a long time.
Last year, we made hard compromises to balance the budget. We did it together. Hard choices resulted in the forecast that we are experiencing today. And I really do hope that we find that spirit again.
What brought me out tonight is because I wanted to be here with other friends and colleagues and others who have come together in order for us to honor the lives of Melissa and Mark Hortman, but also to honor and send a positive message to Senator Hoffman and his wife Yvette. We want them to know that we're praying for them and that we stand with them.
People reminisce and share stories and share the pain because everybody's hurting. Everybody asks how you're doing and everybody gives the same answer. Well, you know, it's hard.
There just are no words for this type of atrocity, and I'm just praying for the family, and sad to hear that the violence has not even stopped yet. It's just outrageous. We just cannot allow this violence. It's never an answer. It's always wrong.
Regardless of what side of the aisle you are on, every legislator's biggest fear came to fruition over the weekend. And despite there being some concern about lawmakers being here, a number of us said, if we can't do this, then they win.
Courage is not proceeding with the absence of fear. It is going forward in spite of fear. In spite of the fact that someone would try to take our feeling of safety, but for us to stand against that and for us to stand against that sort of evil and say that love is going to win. And so that is what I want to say, that love is going to win.